Join us for another episode where real men have real conversations about leadership, relationship, morality, and dominion. Welcome to Man Code.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode 2 of Man Code. Today we have a special Valentine's Day edition. You all can see we have 4 additional people joining us today. And I know we usually go around the table and introduce ourselves individually, but today I want each husband to introduce your wives, and wives, you can say a little bit too. So I guess I'll start first. My name is Austin. This is my wife, Dominique, and I'll let her share a little bit about herself also.
Sure. What type of information do you want us to share?
How did we meet? Am I a good husband? No, just kidding. No, just some quick little information about yourself, all that good stuff.
Sure. So we actually met in college. We've been married for 3 years, and that's about it.
Ooh. Jonathan, can you go back?
All right. My name is Jonathan. This is my wife, Rochelle. Rochelle, what's a little bit of knowledge about yourself?
So Jonathan and I met in a bar. Long story, but I wasn't even trying to get from the time of day, so it's quite funny.
Your boy got game.
Yeah,
I
Jonathan.
learned early on that he is a fantastic listener, and I think that's kind of what got me in the beginning. So here we are, 8 years later.
Awesome.
Well, actually, no, that was 16 years ago, but we've been married 8 years.
16. Oh, 8 years married. Y'all have known each other for 16.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. My name is Danielle Lewis, and this is Mary Lewis.
Hey everybody, Mary Lewis, married to the love of my life, king of my castle, so all is good.
Awesome. Well, my name is Malcolm Crawford, and this is my lovely wife, Diana. About 5 years ago, I was like a man. I was like a ship lost without a sail. But then I was on that ocean of despair, and this wonderful woman came into my life. And
Talk that talk.
I was just about to say.
I've been selling so good ever since. So go ahead, dear.
Well, hi, I'm Diana, and I don't think that he was really very awful in that introduction, because we have been, I think, one of the best things that's ever happened to each other. We've only been married for a little bit less than 5 years, but we are still on the honeymoon, and all is well.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Might laid up some major points for themselves today.
Valentine's Day special. Well, we definitely appreciate all of you ladies joining us today, and we're gonna have an awesome time. So the icebreaker question is the name of today's episode. What is love? So let's go around the horn and answer that question. What is love?
I think in my heart, love is the way you show or the amount of affection that you have for somebody. It's almost like there's nothing that I wouldn't do for this person. I want everything for them. Through good and bad, I'm here, you know. It withstands so much stuff that, I don't know, for me, it's like we can get through anything because I love you, like I'm here. You're it, you know. That's what comes up off the top.
For me, I'd say like love is sacrifice, is emotional intimacy, and it would be commitment. Like those 3 things together.
I think for me, when I think about love, I think about friendship. My husband and I call each other our riders, right? We ride or live. It's open communication, it's transparency, it's intimacy at every level. You know, it's bringing out the best in each other, right? Pushing each other. So just some of the things I think about when I think about the word love.
Yeah, I think you ladies have encompassed so much of what love is. to me, if I were going to sum that up, it would be covenant. And that would mean that I don't have to come to you and ask you, obviously I have to communicate what my needs are, but when I communicate that need, it's there, it's met. And, you do your best and I do my best to meet it. So it's just in that covenant where we know that we can always pull upon one another to get whatever it is. If it's the affection I need, if it's the companionship, if it's, deep intimacy, physical intimacy, whatever it is you need, I'm your covenant partner with that.
That's beautiful.
That's good.
It is. I love that, Pastor.
Oh, go ahead. You can go ahead. Okay, I was gonna say, let's hear from the fellas on that. Can we kick it off with you, Pastor Malcolm? What is love to you?
Well, when you look in the dictionary and you see M-A-L, no, let me stop. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Sometimes I talk about stuff, but I'm gonna keep it plain today. No, no, love is just an intense, deep desire where you want to sacrifice and do the most for that particular individual, who or whoever it may be. You just want to see what's best for them, and that, of course, what God has purpose for them in life comes to pass. You want to do whatever you can to make that happen. And if you can be the one that facilitates that, that's great. But basically, it's getting yourself eyes off yourself and doing what's best for the other person, the other individual.
Mm-hmm.
That made me think of the word selfless. If you want to sum love up, I know we're referring to romantic love, but if you think of just love in general, even to keep romantic love, that feeling alive, you have to be selfless. And that requires a lot of stepping back, but it's a bigger gain at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that love is the emotional and mental connection you have towards another individual, that is underlined with the desire to want to connect on all levels, both physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. The key word, I think, is sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that you allow whoever you're in relationship know that you love them, right? Are you willing to put down your pride? Are you willing to do self-reflection, right? To make sure that you let that person know that you love them, because I think that's a part of love too, is taking a look within and seeing where you could be better, how you can do things differently as well. And so there are 8 different types of love, and I'll read them off to you. So the first one is eros, which is passionate love. The second one is pragma, which is enduring love. There is ludus, which is playful love. There's agape, which is universal love. Philia is deep friendship. Storge is familial love, and mania is obsessive love. So those are the 8 different types of love. So our next question is, what is the difference between love and romance?
I'll jump in. I think the difference between love and romance is that I think love is like the format of the relationship, the intimacy between the two individuals. I think romance is the application. It is what I do in order to express to my significant other how much I do love them. It is the level of pursuit that I have towards that individual to show the magnitude of love that I have for that particular person.
That's good.
I like that. I would almost compare it like this. If love is the vehicle, romance is the fuel that makes it go.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
That's the driving point right there. And a lot of times people confuse love and romance.
Yeah.
Because you can have romance without love, and you can have love without romance. It's learning how to have that nice balance and equation that really makes the relationship click.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going to go with it too, because you hit it when you said there could be a vast difference, because sometimes you may not be very romantic, but you can be one that loves very deep and very passionate, but you just may not have the experience or the tools, or that's just not within your thing to be that type of romantic person. Because there are some guys that out there that are pretty smooth and can romance you and do all this here, but it has no real deep concern or really love for you, and just romancing you to benefit themselves. So yes. As Jonathan said, if you can tie the two together and get that balance, that's the goal, because then you have something special.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say I think love is a conscious choice. Like you have to make the decision to love someone. Whereas romance, you can pull out all of these romantic things, but like you guys said, not love someone. You can use romance just to get whatever you want to get from a person. Whereas love, it's like there's this deep, passionate yearning to want to be in your presence, to want to look at you, to want to, do life with, right? I think that's the difference between love and romance for me.
Yeah, I also see romance is the expression that I'm good with my choice. When you've made a covenant and you're saying, okay, I'm going to be with you, and we're going to walk this thing out together. That's great, and that is the most important foundational piece of it. But the expression of the joy of that is the romance that says, I want to be with you. I want to make you happy. Without that, it's almost as if you could be roommates that are very respectful. But romance takes it up to that level where you continue to seek after each other and be able to express your heart and express your desire. And that's what makes romance really indispensable in a marriage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Romance is really what helps you keep your love alive, right? It keeps it fresh. It keeps it interesting, because you are being intentional to make time to Pastor Diana's point, to express how you feel about that person. And so I feel that romance, when you are in a covenant relationship, is your intentional pursuit of the person that you are with. It's my intentional pursuit of Danielle to keep our love fresh and alive and new through romance. Because I love him, romance is easy.
Nice. Great explanation on that.
Yeah, so let's go to our next question. So it is many individuals feel that a lack of romance is equal to a loss of love. Do you think there's truth to that statement?
I mean, at times, yeah. If you're not expressing, Pastor Brooks always says that the evidence of desire is pursuit. So if you want somebody and you're glad to have them in your life, you can get comfortable and not necessarily, not say I'm not in love with you, but that person doesn't receive anything to let them know. And so that's kind of a letdown to think that you could go through so many years of being together and being pursued, and then one day, what, am I not worthy of pursuing, or is my spouse not worthy of pursuing anymore? To say I'm comfortable with you should actually get us to a point where we're more comfortable in our pursuit, not more comfortable having it.
That's real good.
To to be vulnerable with you. It should be easier to be able to approach you in different ways rather than it being more difficult over time.
I think too, sometimes we change, right? I'm certainly not the same woman that I was now at 51, as I was when I was 21, right? And so sometimes we have to kind of reintroduce ourselves to our spouse, right? Because maybe what did it for me before doesn't do it for me now, right? And it's that communication, it's that transparency to say at 51, you don't have to buy me flowers because that's not my thing to show me that you love me. But ooh, you can rub my feet because at the end of a long work day, now, do you understand what I'm saying? But I need to be able to communicate that, right? As I'm changing or as he's changing and growing, we need to be able to communicate that to say, hey, I love you, but how I express that or how I want that expressed is a little different now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that couple discovery piece is really huge, even in the pursuit of love and romance. To Mary's point, I've shared with other individuals that, you almost want to check their temperature almost like every 5 years, because there's a lot of life that actually happens within the scope of a person's life that can shift that. You could have had somebody significant in your family pass away that now changes the scope of how you view and experience life. You could have had something physically happen to you that changes, how you engage the world that is around you. And so if you're always still have that snapshot of the person that, you said I do to, but you didn't take the time to continue to see the growth and development of that person, then that's where sometimes that frustration even comes in, because you really have a false sense of who the person is that you're looking at. You're still looking at, like Mary said, it's the difference between 21 and 51, and so to Pastor Diana's point, is like, as you guys are growing together, the more you interview, the more you begin to see the shifts and changes in your relationship, the more and the closer you become. It's like that actually produces the intimacy that actually causes your relationship to even cement even more.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
You have to piggyback off that, because you said a key thing, and that's intimacy. And you only build intimacy, true intimacy, through trust.
Yeah.
So I think the deeper your relationship is, and learning that I'm changing, she's changing, we're changing together, but there needs to be an acceptance of the change, and the acceptance and just a viewpoint of just knowing that even if I change, I still love this individual for who they are.
That's
it's
right.
not for what I like. So I think that y'all hit it on the head right there.
Yeah, I think it's like for us, we constantly are like checking each other's temperature, if you will, because of the very thing, the words were taken actually right out of my mouth, that we don't stay the same. Like, we evolve as we get older. And if you're paying enough attention to your spouse, you'll see little changes, as we mature, like, oh, you don't like that no more? Oh, okay, or, oh, she's doing this differently, like we see that in each other a lot, and we have those conversations very often, because I feel like if you're not being open with one another, you're not expressing things that are different with you now than they were before. Perhaps, I don't like candlelight dinners anymore. I just want to sit with a TV tray. Just even the smallest things, you have to have that line of communication open. You have to be verbal with each other. You have to express the likes and the dislikes, in order to keep the bus on, on the right path. So, that I think that's just so important.
Please tell me when you stop disliking me taking my shirt off, Lexi.
That's not gonna stop.
All right.
So, with the oil, what you said last week.
That was funny. I will say that I agree that a person's definition of what constitutes romance may change over time, but I do think the lack of romance is not equivalent to the lack of love, but I do think it could feel as so to a person. So using Jonathan's metaphor earlier of like love being the vehicle and romance being the gas, like if you have a car and it's not moving, then what really is the point, right? So if it can't get you from point A to point B, then it's virtually useless. So I think like a marriage or relationship without romance is pretty unfulfilling, would be a good word. But yes, like to everyone else's points, like what romance looks like after years of being together, that definitely will change. And that's why communication is so important.
And Dominique, I think you brought up a really good point with the fact that it does feel unfulfilling if that's the state that it is in. But what's good to know is that just like a car that's run out of gas, you can always refuel it. Exactly. And that's the thing that you'll always want to focus on is how can I get it back? How can I renew it? How can I just really energize this relationship? Because it's always possible. As long as you're looking at each other and you have a willing heart, it is always possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely appreciate the wifely wisdom that y'all are bringing to the episode today. So I just want to do a quick pivot. So one of our aims here on Man Code is to give the fellas some game, help y'all out, in life, spiritually, romantically, whatever, right? So not every wife has to answer this question, but give me the Reader's Digest version. What is one of the most romantic things your husband has ever done for you?
Done a lot of stuff.
I don't know. Danielle has done so much. Danielle is, he is wonderfully romantic. I think probably the most creative thing he's done is he did a 7-day like romantic pursuit. And so each day was a different challenge. So like he did a video countdown. And so one day I received my favorite perfume. The next day I received like a bag of my favorite things. I received flowers. I mean, and he did this every day, like for a week. And he also does this red bag thing where he has just this red gift bag. And every now and then I'll find it around the house or somewhere. And he will have something in there. Again, it could be my favorite candy bar, whatever, just to let me know that he's thinking of me. So he's wonderfully romantic.
Y'all should have went last.
So before the next wife goes, we just want to let everybody know that coming soon, we will have Donnell's red love bag for all the husbands. All right, next.
Below.
Right, 1995. Get your red bag today. Just kidding.
Get the bag first.
So I guess I'll answer next. You know, again, romance is about knowing the person that you're married to and being able to respond to their needs. I think for me, because of us, you know, being a little more advanced than some of you in age, and the fact that we came together just a few years ago with a blended family, when I see my husband's interactions with my children and his children, when we all come together, and he always makes space for all of our kids in our home. Mm-hmm. Like he is just so selfless with how he just embraces our family. And to me, because my biggest concern when I even thought about getting married again was my children. Even though they're all grown, he took that, and every week, sometimes daily, he leaves space for everybody. And to me, I look at him, and that's the equivalent of him putting on a cape or any type of hot cologne. That becomes really sexy to me, how he embraces my family, how he makes us all one.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes, yes, Pastor Malcolm.
She has great kids too. She has great kids. So yeah, it's really a lot of fun when they come over and everything. And yeah, it brings a lot of energy and life to the house. Yeah, brings a lot of energy and life. So that's good.
What's that cologne you talking about though?
It won't be in your red bag though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got to get some points. I was gonna write down some notes on that, but yeah, that's my goal. Like I say, I hear Brother Danielle was pretty smooth. I like that though. Yeah, I like that. I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm always ready to learn.
In our very early days, I think it was like, was it our first date when we went to that little spot where we sat outside? Okay, so our very first date, I drove down and we went to some little restaurant, you know, in the suburbs, and we had a patio table, and we're sitting there and we're talking, and I don't even know how this came up, but next thing I know, he has my foot out of my little slide-in heel, you know, and he's rubbing my foot under the table. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like just a little embarrassed, but I'm just kind of, you know, looking, and it was, I don't even remember if there was anybody else out there. I probably forgot everything. I just remember his hands on my feet. And to this day, I love his hands on my feet. No. I'm not like romantic, but just like the little small things. And he's so
yeah.
So those are the things that make a big difference for me now, not gifts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I would say for me, It was actually a pretty big gesture. Austin planned my surprise 30th birthday, and I didn't know that anything was happening. I thought we were just gonna go to maybe like a play with just us. And so he like helped me pick out my outfit, and like he talked to every like one of my family members and make sure they got there. So I'm talking about like my mom and my sisters, but also like my great cousins. And it was just the sweetest thing, like just taking the time to plan every little detail. It was like one of my favorite vegan restaurants in Detroit. I just really loved it. And it just like showed to me that he was paying attention to the things that like are important to me. And it was just super special, like just that someone would take the time to sorry, I can't breathe. My cold. That someone would take the time to like plan.
You took her breath away.
That's right.
But yeah, it was just super special, very nice. And oh yeah, I think the other big thing is for us in our relationship, I am the planner. So I plan like most of our trips and all the details of our lives. And so it was really nice to not be in that mode and just to be able to show up and like reap the benefits of his planning.
Donnell and Jonathan, y'all would get a kick out of this. I always tell people I took her out the country for her birthday. We just drove over to Canada Bridge to Windsor and stayed the night over there. But I tell everybody we took a big trip out the country. So.
That's still international.
Yeah, Austin, yeah, I'm about to say that, Jonathan. I was like, we take it for granted because we're from the city, but you know, we've been doing international travel and we didn't even know it. We were just like, we're going over to Canada.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing that information with us. So fellas, take notes, write it down, apply it to your lives. So now we're going to move to the spiritual aspect of marriage. So the first question is, can having a true relationship with God help keep the spark going in marriage?
I'll start with this one.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Only reason why I want to say, because my viewpoint, and I've heard this said before, but God is a romantic. So if you look at God's stance, how he is, he always has that idealistic view ahead. He wants to see the best outcome. He's always trying to lay ground for something good. So I think that's really the gist of it all. When you know God, you learn that way from him. So it naturally helps bud that out of you. If God is love, and naturally we just talked about what, you know, romance and love, how that kind of mixes and intertwines, you're right at the essence of receiving that. So I think you can't do anything but make your marriage lasting, strong, and everything that it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And if he is love and he created us to have relationships with one another, then who best to learn from?
That's right.
Than love himself.
That's good.
So when that relationship is dissipated, spiritually anyway, how are you really going to know how you should love your spouse if you stop looking to your teacher?
Yeah, what I was going to say with, I like the word that you put in there, having a true relationship with God, where you're really concerned about what God wants. The Bible says when a man ways pleases God, it will make his enemies at peace. But we're not dealing with enemies here. But the deal is, if you can please God and really strive, you know, to do that, it will definitely enhance the relationship. For me, for example, if I didn't know God, I probably wouldn't be a great husband, because I don't think I would fulfill all the attributes that God would want us to do, to be, you know, self-sacrificing, selfless, and all those type of things. I think if I wasn't saved, honestly, I think the emphasis probably would be more so on myself, you know, because, you know, it would become more about me, not about pleasing the other person. And that's why I think the benefit of really having that relationship with the Lord, where he holds you accountable and recognizing that you understand the principles of God, like what God commands of a husband. Before I got saved, I had no idea what a biblical husband was supposed to look like. So if you don't have that as your compass, as a guide, I don't think you can really be that, you know, that man of God that God has called you to be. And you'll just it'll become more about you, and then things will suffer, you know, because hey, it's about getting yourself pleased and so forth. And if you get your needs met, well, that's on you, you know. But by having that relation with God, where the focus becomes off yourself and others, I think that has definitely helped me, because I know me, you know. And so yeah, it's been a blessing for my life.
Yeah, and on another end with, you know, when we look at that spiritual relationship, is the book of James says to us, does any of you lack wisdom? Let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally and upbraids not, or he won't chastise you. There are so many times in marriage where you don't know what's going on because your spouse doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, Danielle, you talked about, you know, things like the death of someone who's close to you. We're in the midst still somewhat of a pandemic. And if you think that doesn't change you, you know, you're mistaken. All of those things begin to change who we are and how we respond. And sometimes you don't know what your spouse is going through. They don't know either. And so you can go beyond that, beyond the natural that you see, and you can pray and you can intercede and you can pull down strongholds. You can avert attacks on your spouse and on your family that none of us even have any idea of what they are. All the things that for what we have gone through, there's so many things that never even touched us, never even got in our atmosphere because we covered one another in prayer. And so I think that spiritual connection is vital if you really want a strong relationship, because how, like Rochelle said, how else can you really know how to love except for the person who is love, and that is God.
That's very well said, Diana.
Yeah, and also think having that relationship with God gives your, I would say it gives your marriage like more meaning and more purpose. A lot of times we hear, especially like with our generation, is marriage is nothing but a piece of paper. And when you have that biblical covenant definition of like what marriage is, what love is, I think that makes you work harder for each other as opposed to just giving up and saying, you know what, let's just get a divorce. We're done, we're through. And so understanding, like, you know, when the Bible says love your wife like Christ loved the church, like what does that look like? It looks like sacrifice, like we talked about earlier. So having that relationship just like deepens the definition of what marriage is more than a piece of paper, is more than just saying I love you. It's actually showing it. It's actually being intentional about walking that out every single day.
Yeah. Just want to echo on that and just say that to me, it's that relationship is important because let me just say it like this. It's like with God, you have wholeness. Without God, you have brokenness. And so if you have that relationship, it gives you the opportunity to be a whole individual in a relationship instead of being a broken individual in a relationship. So in one aspect, I'm looking for my spouse to fulfill everything, all my needs and all my desires. But in a relationship, I'm allowing my relationship with God. It creates a balance between what I need to be pursuing from him to what I need to be receiving and providing for my spouse. It gives balance.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, in addition to having, obviously out of our relationship with Christ, it is a love relationship, but with that also comes discipline, right? And so we create discipline in prayer. We create a discipline of worship. We create a discipline for hearing the voice of God. And so, you know, and based out of our relationship with the Father, it's identity, and individually, before we even become married, it's our purpose, it's our destiny, it's finding out what our giftings and our talents are. And so we bring all of that out of this relationship with the Father into our marriage, right? And so we have a discipline then of when things get a little wonky, we pray. If things get a little bit wonky, we worship, because we've built the discipline in our singleness and we are applying it into our marriage.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so I would say the common thing of what all of us were saying is like loving God helps sustain love within our marriage. Like that's where love starts first, is loving God. And that leads to our next point. So something that we hear all the time is, I fell out of love, you know? And is that something that's possible? Can that really happen? Can you fall out of love with someone?
So I'm going to say no. And I'm saying it like that because I'm trying to see how I'm going to actually explain why I said no. I'm saying no because I think love, sometimes a person can identify maybe the emotional feeling as an attribute of what love is. And because they don't feel that any longer, then they say they fell out of love. When love is a conscious choice that you give to an individual on a day-to-day basis, I'm choosing to love you. And so when you make a choice not to, you don't fall out of it. You make a conscious choice not to extend yourself any longer to that person, not to give my heart to that person any longer, not to open myself to be hurt by that person any longer. They don't get any of the attributes that come with love from me because I made a conscious choice not to love them.
And I would just, I like what Danielle was saying right there, because I was looking for that scripture in Revelation. Jesus was talking to the church, and he's talking about how you have left your first love. I think you could leave it, but like you say, consciously, but with what Danielle said, you can also come back to it. You have left your first love and things like that. See, so, you know, because you made a choice to do that for whatever reasons. But yeah, so I'm not saying that as far as falling out of love, I don't have the answer yes or no, but I do know that I think that one can make that conscious choice to leave it, and whether they fell out or not, I'm not sure about that, but they made a choice to depart from that love.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on what an individual's definition is of falling out of love. Does it mean I no longer have feelings? Does it mean that I don't want to be connected to you anymore? Or, you know, does it mean that things aren't the way they used to be and I'm having trouble adapting to that because my feelings aren't attached? And so you have to really assess, what does that actually mean before you know whether you've fallen out of love or chosen not to love, what's actually broken. And that requires a lot more reflection than I think is in that question. We have to dig a little bit deeper to find out what's really going on inside of us.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say that how I feel is like what Danielle said verbatim. Like I literally would have said the same exact words. But it made me think about what Pastor Diana just said, because I think it's possible that a person can still choose to love someone, but if things got to a point where they're not how they used to be, and like say the person that you chose to love is now showing up as a totally different person, then I think that could be difficult. And I think, in my opinion, it will be within a person's right to choose to no longer to be attached to that. So for example, let's say someone married someone who was like Christian and who also had the same values, who may have did some type of work that they also valued. But then over time, this person, they said, hey, you know, I no longer believe in the God that you serve, and these values are no longer mine. Then you could say, okay, well, I choose to love you through this. But if they continue to show up in a way that's not consistent with who you were when they made the choice to love you, I think it is possible that they could decide that they no longer want to love that person any longer. Now, I think typically when people say something like, oh, I fell out of love, I think it is typically at a way more surface level, like I don't feel the feeling anymore, so now I'm not making the choice. But I do think there can be scenarios, probably far fewer in between, where people are connected to people who have changed completely.
Yeah, I agree. And when I hear the phrase like fell out of, it sounds like something I used to say when I was a kid. And whenever I would get in trouble, it just got like that. It's like, no, it didn't just got like that. There were things that happened over time that caused this to happen. It's like the simple basis of cause and effect, right? And so it's like over time, you, like Danielle said, you continue to make these decisions. Like, I'm deciding to not pursue you. I'm deciding to not tell you I love you. I'm deciding to not rub your feet any longer. Like, you make these decisions to not do stuff. So it's not like something just overnight, like, oh, I fell and I don't love you anymore. It's like, no, you made conscious decisions to no longer love this person.
I think too, when we hear love is patient, love is kind, love is long suffering, those are words of maturity, right? And I think sometimes when people say they fall out of love, they no longer have the ability to respond maturely, right? So I don't get my way in the relationship. Oh, I fell out of love. Or, you know, he says something cross to me. Oh, I fall out of love. Because with love and with relationship and with marriage and with intimacy, there is a maturity that needs to be there, right? You need to be able to respond appropriately in relationships. And oftentimes, I think sometimes when relationships end, it's because one or more of the parties or both parties make the choice that how I respond to this person is going to be out of immaturity. So I might cheat because my husband isn't giving me the attention that I think I deserve. Well, that's a maturity factor. That I can't go to my husband and say, hey, I feel like I'm not being seen by you. And so I'm insecure, I'm dealing with insecurity. And so because I'm dealing with insecurity, there's this guy at work that's giving me the time of day and I'm feeling kind of funny. I'm feeling some kind of way. And so it's having the maturity to have that conversation with your spouse out of love, as opposed to going to have the affair, if that makes sense.
One more thought. It makes me think about the conversation earlier about the difference between romance and love. I think sometimes when a person is saying they fell out of love, the reality could be that they actually never really had love in the first place. It was just like, what's the word? Like lust, you know? I like this person, they make me feel good. But now that we have some tension, like to your point, I'm not willing to be patient to work this through because that's not what I signed up for. So I'm out.
Yeah, and I think what you all mentioned goes back to what we were talking about earlier with having the love of God be the first level of priority in our lives, because the word, like the love of God and covenant, just hits different in these scenarios versus just like having love built on no foundation at all. Like that's something that we talk about a lot, is like cultivating, like what are we doing to cultivate this like culture of love, this culture of no matter what, we're not giving up on each other. It's us against a situation, not us against each other. Like, you know, we're attacking a thing together. So it's different when you define love and how you love your spouse from a godly perspective. So our next question is, should romantic expressions only be shown on special days like Valentine's Day, anniversaries, birthday, dating anniversaries, engagement anniversaries, whatever anniversaries women think we should remember all the time, right? Like, you should remember when I got my hair. I don't remember that anniversary. No, so should it only be saved for special days?
Only if you want an unfulfilled relationship. It's like putting your relationship in boxes. So it's like, okay, I'll celebrate you here, here, and here, and the rest of the time we just exist. We just coexist. Now, there are people, they get used to that. I mean, that's not a big deal to some, but again, I don't think you're getting the true fulfillment of that when you just box it up into occasions and time.
What would we do if there were no special occasions like Valentine's Day? You know, like, what would you do then if those things did not exist, which was made by man, by the way? You know, well, we can make our own day, you know, but if you're already appreciating each other, you know, where the other person knows, hey, I know you appreciate me, I know you care about me, I know your heart is here, what's a special day for? You know what I mean? Like, so we look at it like just another day, because we often express ourselves to each other, where, you know, some people just wait for Valentine's Day, I guess.
Well, that's good. I would say to this, I think there are some days that you definitely don't want to forget, such as your anniversary and the big, what I would call the biggies. I would say, hey, which days are very important to you? And then from that, I would just build upon that. You know, like I say, you need to be spontaneous. And like you say, you just need to do those things, you know, you need to get a red bag, you know, and just be intentional and just, you know, always trying to make that person feel that they feel special. And if you have that goal in mind and you're really intentional and putting forth effort, pursuing and all those types of things, you'll probably come all right. But I think the key though, I definitely think anniversaries are big. As far as all the other ones, the sweetest days and all that stuff. I call the biggies, to me personally, the birthdays and the anniversary. Those are the two biggies. Other than that, this is just my personal thing. Yours might be different.
Yeah, between the two of us, my husband is way more proficient at recalling those special days and doing things like that. There was a message recently where we were talking about, if you've been to a restaurant with your ex-boyfriend or whoever, and you say, I don't want to go there. And well, that's the one I'm taking you to. And so when we started dating, I was like, I don't do Valentine's Day. I don't do Sweetest Day. I don't do any of that. Cause I was like, to me, they represented stress. They represented, really brokenheartedness and disappointment, just abject disappointment. And so I just was like, when those days came around, I don't want anything to do with them. And he says, oh no, we're having those days. We are having our Sweetest Day. We are having our Valentine's Day. We are celebrating. And, he pretty much promised me that he would make me forget the disappointment that I felt in the past years over those things. And he's been good on his promises. So,
Right.
To a whole new level.
So thank you all for having us. We're just gonna sit back and let them talk. Y'all go ahead and give us game.
Right, girl code.
Right. Anybody else want to touch on that? Should romantic expressions be for more than just special occasions?
I think everybody, go ahead.
I'll just quickly, I would say definitely very similar to what has been said. I personally agree with Pastor Malcolm that anniversaries really should be memorized and celebrated. But yeah, like for me, outside of that, I think it should just be more regular, more routine, I don't want to use the word routine, but more regular, and not just waiting for holidays. Because for me, it kind of feels like the concept of like waiting for a special day when I thought of this gift a month ago, it's just kind of silly to me. So I don't make a big fuss out of the other holidays.
If I can interject this too, actually, as we all know, tomorrow is not promised. You don't know what's going to take place tomorrow. So, I try to do some things. If I can do it today, that's my position. Hey, do today, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And I try to live by that, because like I say, we're not promised tomorrow. You never know if you're going to see Valentine's, if you're going to see the next day or so forth. So enjoy every day to the fullest. And you don't want to have somebody leave and you say, I wish I had it. I had it. Just get it done and be intentional, be in the moment and live the best day that you can every day.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say is that since this is going out to individuals who may not be doing anything, most assuredly, on a Sweetest Day, Valentine's Day, birthday, anniversary, and any other day you could think of that you can celebrate love in your relationship. But I agree with everybody else is saying. It should go beyond. I'm trying to get my family to a point where we're not even really celebrating Christmas, that we actually are just celebrating each other throughout the year. And then on Christmas, we pour into some other family, or we do something that we just become, because, again, why, and that was my whole thing too. Why are we waiting until this one day to stack up on all these presents just to say, this is a show of love? Like, no, let's just go ahead and just show you, all of this love, spread it fiscally over the year too, so that, so that you have it, you feel it all over the place instead of just, in one place. So to what everybody says, most assuredly, I think it should be expressed, every single day and not just on, but if you aren't doing anything, that's a good starting kit for anybody who's starting to express themselves romantically in a relationship.
I would interject this too, Danielle, is that, you know, the scripture says for husbands to dwell with your wives according to knowledge. And so what you have to be careful of on these Hallmark days, I call them Hallmark holidays, you know, where we buy the cards in mass and all of that, is that you do something that blesses your spouse according to what you know about your spouse.
Yes.
Like if they don't like flowers, why would you bring flowers? If he doesn't want, you know, a hunting knife, dude might not even hunt, you know, then don't get him something that means something to him. It's not about expense. It's about saying, I know you and I see you. And that's what makes those gifts very valuable, not monetary expense, but the fact that you feel known.
And with that being said, I had
But I ain't gonna turn down another gun.
Yeah, I had an old saying too, just give me what I want and I'll let you know. Ask me and I'll tell you, you know.
You will.
Make it real simple for you. I'll make it real simple for you.
And I think that's why understanding and knowing love languages is so important, because the understanding and knowing your spouse's love language sets you up to bless him or her throughout the year, as opposed to a card and a whatever on Valentine's Day. So if I know that Danielle's love language, you know, they're the words of affirmation, well, every day I'm going to tell him how fine he is, how awesome he is, how amazing he is, how wise he is. And to Pastor Diana's point, you're blessing your spouse for who they are. And you don't have to wait, because you're communicating to your spouse in their love language.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. I don't know if y'all noticed it or not, but when Mary said Danielle is fine, did y'all see him do the rock eyebrow? He got closer to the
It's fine, though. It's fine.
Yeah, like I saw Jonathan's eyes light up when Pastor Diana talked about the knife.
Like, yo, stop licking your lips, man. That's
been a gift too, because I know he likes knives. Don't hunt us. He loves knives.
And, no, that's awesome. And so our next question is around affection. So this is, do couples who show public displays of affection have more intimacy than those who don't?
I will say no, not necessarily. I think it goes to earlier conversations about knowing your spouse. Some people are not into public displays of affection. I'm not those people. I am into it, but plenty of people, they don't like it at all. But yeah, so many people are really into it. But yeah, others that are not, like, I don't think that means that they have less like intimacy or affection inside of their home.
Well, short answer, I would say no, because you know, you got some people, I'm just gonna be blunt, you got some people that are perpetrating out, they got some frauds, they'll show that, then when they get home, they won't even speak, won't even open the door, won't even do anything. They just do that for the public's sake. So short answer, no, and long answer, probably no either, but you know.
Pastor Malcolm, I haven't heard the phrase perpetrating a fraud in a minute. That's a Detroit term. Perpetrating a fraud. You made me feel like home for a minute.
Real. That took me back. Oh, that's so funny.
I would answer that. I would answer just like y'all did. I don't think it's an indication of that, because I've actually witnessed it both ways. I've seen the front, and then I've seen the real deal. So I think it just has to do with the understanding. Once you understand your mate, and again, like you alluded to, Pastor Dana, with having knowledge of your wife or knowledge of your spouse, I think you could just navigate whatever road comes across. So even if it's just, you don't have to be tonguing each other down. You know, if we decide to do that, we will. I ain't gonna front. But at the same time, you know, just a simple holding of the hand, you know, just a hand on the shoulder, things of that nature. Even just standing at certain points where we may brush against one another. But it's just knowing the individual, just like you all alluded to. I think that's the answer to it all right there.
Yeah, and also, you know, you guys are perpetrating a fraud here, is what he said. But when people are doing those things, you got to make sure that the other person is actually comfortable, because just for what it looks like, or even if you think you're being genuine in your communication. If that other person is not vibing with it, you just shouldn't do it.
No, that's awesome. And everything that you all said segue into our next point, knowing your spouse. And so this question is, what is the importance of knowing your spouse's love language?
I think it's a deal breaker.
What do you mean?
Can you build on that?
Because if I don't know how to love her and how to get her to respond to what my affections are, we're at a loss. We're at a disconnect. So again, it goes back to dwelling in knowledge, learning them, and that's taking time to constantly just study, almost be in spy mode sometimes. And she'll tell you, I don't make a lot of noise when I walk. So a lot of times I'll just creep around and just watch and observe.
He thinks he's creepy.
But the thing is, I'm observing for a reason, because I'm listening, I'm observing, I'm learning. And that's a continual thing. So when you really are in love, you're constantly in training mode also.
That's good.
I'm usually watching him when he don't even think I'm paying him any attention. So, but I think that's the best way, because he has no clue and I'm just taking it in. So.
A house full of ninjas.
Hey, that last name is self mode.
Well, I mean, that's how you communicate as you stay in relationship and as you change in your life, is, you just keep looking to see what this person that you're married to desires now. Not worry about what it used to be, but where is that right now? And that means you hear me and you see me. And that's important. Marriage is, to me, all about really being known on a very, very deep, intimate, and intellectual level.
Mm-hmm.
I really agree with Pastor Diana, because we are all like individual people that are also still changing and growing. And so it's just like, you can't really go off what you necessarily believe to be true from the past. Just kind of be in the present and understand like what that person needs or wants.
Yeah, for sure. Those are all great points. And so we definitely appreciate everyone for joining this special episode of Man Code. We had an awesome time having our wives on with us. And it's not every day that we're going to have this opportunity. So we got a couple minutes left. I want each wife, like I said, we want to help guys as much as we can. So what is some woman wisdom that you can give the fellas out there who is listening to help them become a better man for their spouses?
Don't be trying to change them, and give them some grace.
I will often say that Danielle, for me, is the expression of God's love, his goodwill, and his intent for me in the flesh. Everything that God has for me as a woman, as a daughter, Danielle represents that to me. And so for men to think that you are able to love a woman separate from the father is totally impossible. You can't do it. Let me say it this way. You might be able to do it, but you won't be able to sustain it long term. You really have to have a deep, loving relationship with the father to understand how to love his daughter.
My word of wisdom would be, don't be afraid to have hard, deep conversations. As uncomfortable as it is to go through tension and to go through things that are difficult times, it's so much worse when you just leave them sitting out there to fester. So have the difficult conversations, but have them from the framework of love, and that we're going to make this work. We just need to figure out how.
That's good.
I would say be willing to be like emotionally vulnerable. And also, as we spoke about earlier today, like whoever it is that you're in a relationship with, get to know them as a person and not cliches of what women like. We are not all the same, and actually listening goes very far.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, there you have one tiny quick thing.
Go ahead.
Don't let other people in your relationship. Like telling people your business, all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a no-no. Okay, I'm done.
May I add to that? And I didn't understand what my mother was saying. if you are a married woman, you should not have a lot of single female friends around you. My mother said, don't let a single woman come into your house to borrow sugar, milk, coffee, and nothing else. Because next thing she'll wind up borrowing is your husband. So I agree with what you said, Rochelle.
Good.
I have any sugar.
Get your own sugar. Go down the street for some sugar.
That's awesome. Well, again, we thank everyone for joining us this week for our episode of Man Code. Again, we appreciate our wives joining us today. It was an awesome treat. Join us again next week, Monday. Oh, we're giving out kisses.
Get this mine in. Y'all
Slide one in. Slide one in. All right, so we got going so Jonathan and his wife can enjoy their night. Again, we'll be back again next week, 7 o'clock live. We'll see y'all next week. Have a good one.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this content,
Make sure you like, subscribe, and share.
and make sure you turn the notification bell on.